Which one? Better.
I can pull up my phone on something too.
Okay. Yeah. Just getting set up here.
This is really weird, like seeing myself. Like,
I'm pulling up the other, like 5 of them. Let's see. All right.
okay, this is.
There you go. I think
Oh, that works. Like you can really see the comments there.
yeah. I've never tried that way.
I didn't do that because you can't be live on that either.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You can't watch it on both. I was going to record on this one. No, we just weren't talking yet.
Sorry, we're just trying to finish setting stuff up.
There you go. All right. Sweet. I'm going to grab you.
Okay.
All right. Sweet. There's like a lag. There's normally lags with the.
Oh, like there's a lag on the.
Yeah, but like going through. Well, hello. Let me know if you guys can't hear us. Okay, so we're first time trying to stream together with both of us sitting here. Don't have any mics or anything, but want to say hey. So if you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. This is my wife Kayla. So I'm a narcissist in recovery and have dedicated a lot of my channel to talk about narcissism and how it's affected me, how it's affected our lives, how it's affected our marriage and things like that. And people have been asking for a while about having us come on live and be able to talk about it and everything. So we talked about it, and this is our first time doing a live together. So I wanted to kind of throw it out there. Just
this
for
is
everybody.
my first ever live too. Like
your first ever live. Okay.
So it's really weird.
So it's a little bit harder because like the phone is like straight up. So we're trying to like do it so we could be able to see, everybody could see both of us. So also have it like streaming to the TV screen so we can actually see some of the comments. Otherwise it was really kind of hard to see because you're like way over there. But anyways, if you guys are following this or watching this late in the recording, like thank you guys. Appreciate you guys being here. So we are currently on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. The main interaction that we typically have, that I typically have, is on TikTok. So that will be kind of like the main thing that we're going to be going off of. If we see throughout the night different comments and stuff on Instagram or on YouTube, I'll try to address those as well. But sometimes it's kind of hard. So to be able to tag all of them. But anyways, great to see you guys coming in. Brewski, great to see you. So this is Kayla. Yep. So I want to make sure everybody knows. All right. Cool. Do you wanna say anything? Yeah, I don't know how to make the question answer box. I've tried it and it doesn't pop up for me. Yeah, I've tried the question answer box, but I haven't been able to get it hooked up. So sorry, you'll just have to put them in the comments. But anyways, do you want to tell a little bit about yourself? Kind of go from there.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Kayla. I do have platforms. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, but those are motherhood. I do have a TikTok that I talk about some narcissistic stuff, but I just kind of put a pause on that. My passion is motherhood and lifestyle type videos. So yeah. And then we've been married. I'm sure you guys know we've been married for like 8 years now. Yeah. 8 years. Been together for 10. So, okay. And if you guys, like, if I don't see an question, just keep asking and I'll try to answer as many as possible. So
the good thing is the video on the screen is lagging, but the comments are live. So just ignore the video because the comments.
Okay. So the comments are like.
Yeah.
The
like what's going on.
Lagging?
No, the comments aren't lagging all. So what you see on TikTok is popping up on the screen like right away.
Okay.
It's actually pretty cool how fast it is.
Let's see. Kayla, did you ever fear that you were the narcissist? Yes, I did. Whenever I started, so how I found out even about narcissism was actually on TikTok. It was basically right as soon as the pandemic started. I actually joined TikTok and wanted to do some content with my daughter. And I just started basically like on my For You page, narcissistic content was coming up. And I was like, what is this? Like, I just thought a narcissist was somebody who was like full of himself and had a big ego. And that was it. Which obviously that is part of it, but there was even more stuff. So then I started doing my own research of like, what is narcissism? What is a narcissist? And I was like, wow, like this is very eye-opening. Like this is my husband. Like this is like he checks pretty much like all of the boxes except for a couple. He has never physically abused me, and there was like some random like weird one. And so I was like floored. And so I started doing my own research as far as like the love bombing, the manipulating, and everything. And then it just kind of all started clicking. And I was still obviously in denial because I was like, maybe it's me. Like, maybe I'm the problem. Because when I brought it up to him, he obviously like gaslit me and was like, no, like, I'm not the narcissist. Like, you're the narcissist. And so I was like, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm the problem because obviously, you know, with narcissistic abuse, you have those fears and you're basically taken down to nothing. And you think that something is wrong with you, you know? So yeah, I did for sure. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but
no, you're good. So it'll take a little bit just to get used to being on here. So
just read off comments too, because do you feel like you're giving false hope doing this kind of interview? Yeah, I think that was, part of it. I don't ever want somebody to think that their narcissist is going to change. I've talked to several people, and the first thing that I say is, I don't want you to think that that my situation is going to be your outcome, because a lot of times it's not. It's very hard for narcissists to actually want to go and get help and to want to really, better themselves. It's very, very rare. So I don't ever want to give false hope. And disclaimer, like, obviously don't. I know he mentioned it, I think, one time in his live, like, don't go to therapy with a narcissist. Like, go to therapy yourself first. And then if they are willing to go with you, then that's different. But I think the biggest thing is just to start getting help for yourself.
Yeah. So the biggest thing, especially when I do like any one-on-ones or I talk to people like individually, like about narcissism or like what they're dealing with, I had 2 one-on-ones today, and like one of the ones that I talked to, I was like, he obviously hasn't shown any change. He obviously hasn't been working on himself. Like, you need to leave. Like, you need to ghost him, block him, like move on. If it means losing a couple $1,000s of like a scholarship, or if it means like losing your job to be able to go to a different job so you can get away from him, like, that's what I said. So like, we're definitely on here not wanting to give false hope or anything. And if you watch any of my channel, I'm sure you hear a lot of that as far as me just saying, like, if they're not willing to change, then you need to leave, because it's not going to do anything.
To add to that, we actually, early on in our marriage, we actually did go to counseling together, and it was awful. Like, he basically put all of the blame on me, and at the time the counselor was not that great. And so then I walked out of there thinking to myself, like, oh, I'm for sure the problem. Like, he did X, Y, and Z because I was the one who caused it. And that just kind of stuck with me. And it honestly has taken a year, almost 2 years of therapy and counseling for myself to realize I do not make him do things that whatever he does. So I don't control him. I don't do whatever. So it's, his actions are based off of him and him only.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's why I've said, like, every video that I've done about like counseling and stuff like that is, do not go to counseling with a narcissist. Like, focus on yourself and your own growth. And if they want to focus on themselves, then they can go to counseling individually, but don't go together, because if you go together, typically they're going to use that just to be able to manipulate you. They're going to use that to be able to come back at you and say, see, the counselor pointed out, like, if you were doing this, like, I would love you better. Or if you were doing this, then this would be better in our relationship, or whatever it might be. So like, I definitely been consistent about that. Try to make sure, like, if you're with a narcissist and they want to say, hey, let's go do counseling together, like, no, because it's going to come back to bite you.
The next question I see is, Kayla, are you ever on eggshells anymore? I am not on eggshells as much. But there are still certain things that trigger me, like that we talk about. And I will go into those either already on the fight or flight mode, and kind of ready to flee or whatever in the moment, or freeze, and just not really want to talk about it. But I think going to therapy and counseling, and working through those hard conversations together has helped me be less on eggshells. But there are times that I am.
Yeah, I mean, there's still conversations or arguments or things that'll pop up that can be triggering for both of us on either side for various reasons.
How has conflict changed knowing he has MPD? So I think the biggest thing is, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I have to say what is on my mind about a certain topic. So I don't know, just a random, I don't even know. I'm trying to like gather my thoughts, but I think the biggest way that it has changed, it is easier to go into a conversation and being able to call him out if he starts gaslighting or manipulating or anything like that. Besides like going into that conversation and kind of like knowing in my mind, this is probably not going to go over well. He is probably going to end up like exploding and like gaslighting me and like yelling at me and making me feel like the smallest person in the world. Versus now I can actually like go into a conversation and say like X, Y, and Z. And if he comes at me, then I'm like, hey, like, this is how you're coming across. We need to tone it down. Like, if we need to walk away and come back to it, then that's fine. But this isn't like, you're not going to do this.
Mm-hmm. And it's easier kind of like working through some of that like now versus like in the past. Like, it wasn't versus like in the past, like I wouldn't care what she would say. I wouldn't care like if she was triggered or anything. I would just, get upset and just kind of blow up kind of thing. But now understanding and knowing more of like what's going on with narcissism and like what I struggle with, like when she actually brings it up, I'm like, okay, like I actually know that that's true because I know this is what I deal with and kind of work through. So
my TikTok. So I have 2 TikToks. The first one is Hope in the Healing. That's the one that has like some of the wife's perspective, and then
they're already putting it there for you.
And then the second one, it is
which one?
My main one. If y'all want to also follow her, is Kayla Taylor 28. That has like more like mom stuff. Mm-hmm. So.
But yeah, I saw a comment like earlier asking, can a narcissist change without therapy? And no, I don't think so. I think therapy is essential for the narcissist to be able to work through the lies that they have, be able to get to a place where they can actually find healing and find like some type of hope. I think there also has to be more involved with that, than just therapy. So like for me, like God was part of my journey of just being able to get through and figure out like, there's lies that I was believing about myself, about Kayla, about God, and different things like that that was kind of blocking me from being able to change.
I saw a question that says, have we done EMDR therapy? Yes. I spent probably a good 6 to 7 months in EMDR therapy. I have past trauma as well, not just in our our marriage, but also in the past. And I spent probably a good 6 months doing EMDR. And then he did a little bit.
Yeah, I did a little bit of EMDR. At first I thought it was like crazy. I was like, what in the world is this? But then after a period of time, like a couple sessions in, I finally had like a couple breakthroughs, and it was just stuff that had been early on in my past that I was able to kind of work through. And I went there for, I don't know, a little while, and then I stopped going for a period of time, and I didn't go anywhere.
I think you went like 3 months.
Yeah.
Like
and then I started looking at other places and went to a couple different ones, kind of, I guess you could say, shopped around until I found the counselor that I'm with now.
Throughout the toxicity of your relationship, did you ever fall off and do wrong things? No, I never cheated or anything like that. I stayed faithful, because obviously I thought that I was in the wrong. So I was trying to do everything to like change who I was.
I would accuse you of that though.
Yes,
like,
he would. Any type of like, if I got like a comment or something, on like an Instagram or a Facebook post, he would say, oh, like, are you talking to that guy? Or are you like cheating? And I'm like, no, like how, like we live like so far away and I barely even talk to this person, know this person. But yeah, he would accuse me of doing stuff like that.
Yeah. And a lot of times that was just a way to be able to put her on the defensive so that she wouldn't be coming at me, or she wouldn't question me about what I was already doing or how I was already cheating, or whatever was going on in the moment. Like if I could put her on the defensive, then it wasn't something that she could come at me.
Well, okay. I was reading a comment and it just like,
you have to read fast. Sometimes they go like really fast. Well, here you can answer one on Instagram.
Okay.
How long did you go no contact, and for how long? What's your experience with that?
We didn't exactly go 100% no contact, because when we separated, we do have she was 2 at the time. We have a 2.5-year-old daughter. But we did have minimal contact during the stint that we were separated. We were separated for like 4 months, 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah, almost 4.
And that was like over the summer. And that kind of was just, it was either going to be the make or break of our relationship. It was either going to be the turning point that we were going to come back and we were going to work on this, or we were just going to like part ways. So yeah.
They're probably going to wonder, like, why did you decide to come back?
Oh, yeah. So, and then along those lines, because I started seeing like genuine change, he was consistent in going to therapy throughout the entire time that I was gone. And when we came back and we had a conversation, he actually like said like, hey, let's look into getting counseling together and therapy together and see like where it goes.
And then we didn't get therapy together for a good while after that though.
No, it was like a month, I guess.
We went with that one, then we
got yeah. Well, technically starting to get good therapy. It was like recently. It was more recently. So like month and a half, I guess now.
Because we'd been, to clarify, we'd been in our own individual therapy all during that time, and even during the time when we had like hardly any contact. Like you were going to therapy, I was going to therapy.
Yeah. I was doing virtual therapy while we were separated. Because I was with family back in South Carolina. So yeah. I did see a question of something about how did I get over the infidelity. I have not 100% gotten over that. It is, I think that just comes along with like time and being like him consistently changing and trust being built back up. I think that goes along with, even if a person is not in a narcissistic relationship, if you choose to work on things, you have to also like in one sense take baby steps to build that trust back up. But I think the biggest thing is knowing that he's a little bit more open, and that he has no contact with any of those people. So
it still feels weird being online together. When I'm on live by myself, I feel like I can get like
explain
fired up, and
your
I'm just kind of like
family-
shy now.
How did I explain to my family I was going back to a narcissist? So my family is very supportive. They were willing to support me either way. They were willing to support me if I decided to leave, and they were willing to support me if I decided to stay. Their biggest concern is they wanted me to be happy and they wanted me to be safe. And so I 100% like understood where they were coming from, but they didn't push either way because they ultimately knew like it had to be my decision. What do you do if you end up in a narcissist, but they? So it says, what do you do if you end up with a narcissist, but they don't leave you alone or change? So, my biggest thing is if they don't leave you alone or change, and you are like, if you're still with them, then my advice, if you have the means and you're able, I would say leave. But if you've already left, the easiest way for them to leave you alone is just block them. Unless you have kids together, then I would have literal minimal contact except for about your kids. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, or like we've talked about like third party, or just contacting like only through like email or things like that, or going through another person just to try to be able to help with that.
What made Ben want to seek help? Did you tell him to get therapy, or do you go?
So like for me, I don't think she told me to get therapy. She's the one that brought up like, hey, you might be a narcissist kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, whatever. But like after a period of time, like I started realizing like I have these traits, I have these things that I can see for myself that I actually do match up with this. And for me, I'm like losing my train of thought. But for me, it like took a period of time. Like from the time I was like, oh, like I might need to go to the time I actually went was like multiple months because I just kept putting it off. It was something that I didn't want to do. You know, I didn't want to actually admit or like cut the lies that I would actually, you know, have that problem. So I'm gonna pull up something for someone's question.
No, you're fine. Kayla, do you feel like I think it was something about my self-esteem has improved. I hope that I'm answering this question correctly. I do feel like my self-esteem has improved a lot. Essentially, I had probably in like 2 to 3 years into marriage, I lost a lot of my self-esteem, especially as the emotional and like mental abuse started getting like worse and worse. And then it was probably last year when he finally like admitted like he was a narcissist, and like I was like, okay, kind of like a sigh of relief of like, okay, I'm not, you know, the problem. I started really trying to hone in and focus on myself, and started putting my self-care first and things like that. And so it has taken me a really long time. Honestly, it's probably even up until probably like a month or two ago that my self-esteem is like probably back at like an 85%. I still obviously have some work to do, but it's for sure building there. Do you feel actively trauma bonded to him? Not, I don't, okay. I think in a sense, when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you're always going to be to an extent trauma bonded, even if they are aware. So I would say to an extent, I probably am, but I definitely do not, I am not as bad, nor do I defend his actions anymore. I was trauma bonded so bad that I defended every single thing that he did. So anytime, like when he admitted that he had cheated like multiple times, I was like, okay, that it was my fault. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I must have done something wrong. Like, what can I do to make it better? And then I would essentially like cover for him or try to shield him from other people finding out or whatever. Like, I didn't want to put him on blast. Like, the trauma bond between us was like super deep. And that was partly also the reason why I wanted to separate, because I needed to find myself again and to not have such a strong like trauma bond. Let's see.
Yeah, so wait for a forever trauma bond. So you always be trauma bonded to me.
I mean, I believe to an extent, because I mean we have like a huge history, and you know, especially him being self-aware, I do believe like it's easier for us to acknowledge like when I'm defending him, and that's something that we are obviously talking about in therapy. But yeah.
I think too, like part of it was like you left and you weren't going to come back, and the only reason you came back was because I was starting to make changes and like continual changes. It wasn't like you came back because I forced you or manipulated you, because like there was a good period of time when you were gone that I was like hoping you'd stay away and not come back. You
know. Is it a bad idea to reach out to the narc's ex to make sure you aren't crazy? Can I answer that one?
Where
sorry.
I didn't even see it. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It was something.
About to reach back to the yeah. I mean, a lot of times it's not a good idea. Some people have with like mixed success where they realize like, oh, like they got like everybody else got abused as well. But yeah, sorry, I didn't see the whole question. I was reading another one and then they all disappeared. So, I went to get the book because I think somebody had asked a question about like the lies between me and God. And like one of the biggest ones, so there's like 7 lies that I had to kind of go through with the Wake Up Warrior Challenge and with things like that. But the main lie that I had between myself and between God that was blocking me from God was the idea that God is not good enough for me. That was like one of the main things. I put God is not good enough for me. Just like having doubt and fear, and that was like God won't satisfy me or give me the joy, so I have to take it. If he isn't enough, then what's the point of right or wrong? Nothing's good enough. Kayla would never be. I can't read my writing. Be by thinking this, and then I have to do it on my own way. So basically, the main lie was God is not good enough for me.
They were asking what book you're talking about.
Well, the book I'm reading from is just my own handwriting. So the Wake Up Warrior does have a book that's out there. There's a bunch of ads on Instagram, but Wake Up Warrior Challenge. I went through the 30-day challenge, which is costs a couple $100s now, but it's worth thousands. It's literally priceless. Did I ever trash talk you to family?
I don't. As far as I know he didn't never trash talk me to family, but he would have to answer the friends because obviously he would tell me no, like I don't talk bad about you. I think he would drop hints or irritations,
or like arguments or frustrations of like we just had this argument or whatever. Definitely like to supplies.
Who has narcissism? Ben.
What?
Somebody.
I have narcissism? People found it out. What drew you to Kayla, attracted to her initially besides looks? What made her a good victim? Part of what drew me to her initially is I was jealous because I worked at Chick-fil-A and she had been at Chick-fil-A longer than I had. And then I worked at Chick-fil-A and came in and she was good friends with like all the guys there. And so whenever she'd get ready to leave, she'd go around and like give all the guys like a hug. And I could never get one because I was like the brand new person. And she was like, who the heck is this person? And then we had Cow Day. Cow Day. And I got to be dressed up as the cow for part of it. And, everybody gives the cow hugs and the cow gives hugs. So I gave her a hug when I was in the cow. And then after that, I was like, oh, I can give her hugs now. And then we still kicked it off.
Somebody asked, did you have multiple accounts and messaging accounts?
Or messaging accounts? Not necessarily multiple emails, but like, Snapchat, WhatsApp, messaging, Instagram messaging, like multiple things like that. I have multiple email accounts now, but they're all like business related.
Did you correctly?
No, I moved when I gave her the hug. I probably have the picture someplace. Is it still over there?
Yeah.
Sophia likes to take it.
Our sorry, I've been just walked in front of the screen. So,
I was gonna
how
see
are
if they
you
could
able
actually
to
see the
admit to
picture.
yourself
It's kind of hard to
that
see. There's like a glare.
there was an issue with narcissism? So
It's like a really bad glare. Okay, sorry. I'll stop talking.
no, you're fine.
There you go. That's me and Kid.
So I was the one who initially brought it up to him, that he was a narcissist. I didn't know that you're not supposed to really like approach a narcissist and tell them, hey, you're a narcissist. I didn't realize the repercussions that go into that. Because I was just obviously starting out figuring out what it was. And so he had brought up like other things, like if he was like, maybe I'm a sociopath, maybe like all of this. And so we had done research on that and realized that that wasn't it. And I was like, hey, you've been wanting to know like what's wrong, here it is. And yeah, it did not go over very well. He just kind of was like, no. Like he went to asking like all of the past like relationships he had. Because I obviously at that time didn't really know much about them. And so he was like, hey, do you think I'm a narcissist? Or read this, like, do I check these boxes? And they're like, no, of course not.
Yeah. So I didn't like rage out whenever she like first brought it up, because when she first brought it up, I also had brought it up at the same time. I'd been talking to her, and it was like a random weird moment of like somewhat vulnerability, and I was like something's wrong with me. Like I don't have empathy. I don't really care about people. Like I don't connect. It's like emotionally the same with other people and things like that. And then, I was like, maybe I'm a sociopath. And then she brought it up, and I dismissed it pretty quickly. And then I made sure to go out and get other people to validate that I wasn't a narcissist. I went to people that I, had supply with, or other people that I was cheating with at the time, and was like, go tell Kayla I'm not a narcissist, and they did their part and like said that. And so that's all I got.
I had a thought and then I lost it just now because I was reading a comment. After
once more people start getting on, it gets harder to
sorry guys, just keep dropping the same questions.
If we ignore it, it's probably on purpose. No, I'm just kidding.
I won't ignore you on purpose. That might be.
How do you gain trust again? There you go.
I think really it just takes time. The biggest thing right now that is helpful is going through therapy and counseling individually and together. And just really continuing to have those hard conversations that, I may have not have wanted to have in the past, and just, knowing that if I wanted to, I could pick up his phone. I think I saw that was something, do I check his phone? I did a lot in the beginning, when he told me about like,
but then you just get pissed off.
Yeah. About like him cheating, because obviously I felt bad. So he was still talking to the women at the time, and I would just get like so mad, and it would stress me out, and I would get so much anxiety checking his phone. And I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm setting myself up for more emotional like harm, and I stopped doing it. And so now I can, like, if I wanted to pick up his phone and go through it, I would be fine. But sometimes the thought of that is just like, it's triggering. So I just kind of, in one sense, like trust that I have to at some point start blindly trusting that he is not cheating anymore. And that is something, he knows. And so, I will find out eventually, because I found out about all the affairs, but that is one of my, like, if he cheats again, or if he starts showing that he is not continuing to improve, like, I'm done.
I just also want to ask the question, like, do I feel like she judges me, like, when she doesn't? And yeah, I feel that way a lot. And even like today, like, we had the start of an argument in one sense. And like, I communicated like exactly like what she said that made me feel. And like, I was on the verge of like really wanting to like rage out and getting really like pissed and everything. And just like, I finally just like wrote in the text, I was like, this is exactly like how it comes across and how I feel. And she was like, yeah, you totally read into that, which I had to like really think in my mind. I was like, I know she didn't mean that, but like even that wants to like piss me off because I was like, that doesn't seem very nice. Like I'm not trying to, but yeah, so it's still something that we have to like walk through. And a lot of the stuff, like even today, like I'm like preaching to myself the stuff that I'm telling people on like one-on-ones and like walking through of like, what's the facts? Like, where is she coming from? Where am I coming from? Like, what's the end goal? And like working through to like calm myself down or get to the place of like, she didn't intend it this way. She didn't intend this, that kind of thing. So, if you guys are new on here, I'm the narcissist. So my wife Kayla, she agreed to come on tonight just to be able to talk, be able to share some of her perspective. If you don't know much about narcissism, look up the DSM-5. It's really helpful to be able to go through and see what all is involved with narcissism. So there's 9 different characteristics of narcissism. You have to have at least 5 to be diagnosed as a narcissist. And so go in there, check it out, and be able to see. So my wife is on TikTok and also Instagram, like all the social media stuff like that. So Hope in the Healing, and then Kayla Taylor 28. And then you can follow me on YouTube, Instagram under Raw Motivations. Also the website rawmotivations.com. That's where I have some places where people can schedule some time just to be able to talk to me one-on-one. Either they're dealing with narcissistic tendencies and I'm trying to help them like get into therapy, cut the lies, or they're in a narcissistic abusive relationship and I'm trying to help them like be able to break out of a trauma bond and doing things like that. So
there is a question that says, does been or has been ruined birthdays, holidays, etc. Yeah, so honestly, he's never really done anything special for my birthday, I think, except for this year. When I turned 29, he actually planned like a trip to take like to go and do something. But other than that, he's never made like a huge deal about my birthday or anything like that. It's just kind of been like muddied water or whatever. And we would usually end up arguing on holidays or my birthday or something, and those would probably be the most like probably some of the worst arguments.
But I would expect you to make a big deal on my birthday.
Right, but I would have to make a big deal on his birthday.
But I can't tell you that either. So this last birthday, I was like, "Where's my card?"
Yeah. So his birthday this year, I didn't make a big deal about it, and he was not very happy.
That was all right.
I mean, it was kind of hard. Your parents were here too, so.
Yeah. Was that when you forgot the card, though?
I didn't forget the card. I just couldn't find it.
Same difference.
And then I think somebody said, do we argue all the time? We do not now.
We used to.
Yes.
Year 1 of marriage, year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Well, especially the last like year and a half, we would probably argue every single day. And it was getting bad. And that's the reason why I was like, I'm not coming back unless you change.
That's a good question. I mean, you don't want to do like couples therapy. I've seen mixed results as far as like people going to the same therapist or whatever, but like not together. Like biggest thing is individually at first. It's also hard because if you're going to the same exact person, it could also still be twisted against you. Like their perception of you.
Is the argument different than it used to be? Yes.
It's not as loud.
It's not as loud. It doesn't last as long. And I feel like we actually like are okay at the end of it. And yeah, we tend to.
A hard boundary again. Or like, what boundaries do you have for me now, I guess?
Yes, it will be saved on YouTube. Yes. Explain once again about the hard boundaries. So one of my things whenever I came back, because he obviously was changing, and like he mentioned earlier, he did for a period of time, he didn't even want me to come back. When I did come back, because I saw that he was like changing and like making an effort to actually like reach out and want to have conversations with me, wanting to FaceTime me, He wanted to actually like talk to me whenever I was dropping off our daughter, for him to have. Just things like that. I just started slowly seeing those changes. And then whenever I came back, the hard boundaries is like, if you ever cheat again, or if you start like not going for like continuing to move forward, as far as like changing and growing yourself and things like that, like I'm done. Because I had to dig myself out of a pretty like hard space, and I don't ever want to go back there.
Someone asked on YouTube, how would you manage and cope with your narcissism if you didn't have YouTube and people reaching out to you for help? Oh, that's towards me. Yeah. Sorry, I was like reading it like it's towards you. I mean, really, like the people reaching out, like that's not like my supply. That's not something that I'm like, oh, like I have to have that to be able to help. Really, like the biggest thing for me managing and coping like with my narcissism is therapy. So I'm going to therapy like every single week. So every Wednesday I'm in therapy. Normally for like an hour and 15 in one sense. And then I'm also just doing my daily diligence on the stuff that I've learned with the Wake Up Warrior program. Really focusing on cutting the lies, getting to a place where I'm real, I'm raw, I'm vulnerable, and that's painful and it takes a lot of time.
Kayla, do you have any CPTSD? Yes, I do. And that is something that I have worked a lot to overcome and to try to not have those triggers and things like that. For anybody who doesn't know, it's complex PTSD, post-traumatic stress. So it's basically if you have had multiple years of trauma, your body just kind of goes into this like shutdown mode and you are triggered, and just look it up. It's there's a lot that goes into that, but yes, I do. How do you go about your day without supply? Do you get bored?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, like I keep really busy. So I've got a lot of stuff going on with work, with this, with another business I'm trying to slowly launch and get off the ground. So I definitely keep busy in that aspect. But as far as like supply, like normally like the aspect of supply is like looking for that validation in other people versus myself versus working on like the facts and the reality of who I am, who I need to be, and like where I'm going. And so a lot of times, you know, it changes as far as like I'm not looking at other people. I'm not looking for other people. I'm working to be real with my wife and be able to grow with that. And part of the way is to be on here and be able to be honest with other people and say, hey, this is where I've been and this is where I'm going, and trying to help people along the way. Yeah, so I think I've seen people term like there'd be like good or bad supply in one sense. So if we had to term it with good or bad supply, then like good supply would be at this point like being able to help other people, being able to get to a place where I see other people succeed and grow. And so that's also why I mean, honestly, with Lee's encouragement and Heather as well, I started like the one-on-ones and kind of like the coaching stuff, even like the trauma bond workshop coming up next week. Just like things like that have been really influential just in trying to help other people avoid this and avoid getting into this type of situation.
There was somebody who says something about a red flag if they insist on having female friends. Yes. He insisted on having a ton of female friends, and he just made up the excuse of I just connect better with females, like yada yada yada. And every single one of those people is who he ended up cheating with. I'm not saying that is like everybody, but from my personal experience, I prefer that he not have female friends that he texts or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. No, I never really struggled with alcohol, mainly because by the time that was coming into my life, I knew I already had a very obsessive and addictive personality. So I knew if I picked it up, I probably would never put it back down. Also, there was a couple things in my life, not my immediate family, but the one family that I was like really close to, that I saw a lot of alcohol and abuse in that area, that really turned me off to it. So just never went that direction. It's not a faith-based thing or anything like that. It's literally just my past and my personality.
I kept seeing questions about CPTSD. I have been in therapy, and I've gotten to where I can manage things a little bit more. So I only do therapy once a month. But yeah, I had some past childhood trauma that carried over, and then this obviously narcissistic abuse does not help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you have a narcissist in your life and they're not willing to cut the lines, be real, and end up getting to a place of honesty, then they're not going to change, and they're not going to grow. They're not going to do anything. So if they're not willing to actually be real, be raw, be honest with you, then run, because nothing's going to happen. Don't hold out on hope for someone if they're not actually going to get real with their actual thoughts, feelings, and actions.
No, not my parents are not narcissists.
You said before you think your mom might have some tendencies.
Possibly. I mean, I don't know.
No.
But did you ever abuse your
like insults? Yeah. Like arguing, yelling, insults, degrading, devaluing. Yeah, for sure.
Have most narcissists had a rough childhood?
A lot of narcissists do have a rough childhood, because a lot of narcissism is brought up through emotional abuse, mental, physical abuse, like things like that. And then there's also like emotional like neglect and things like that will bring up narcissism in different people, overbearing parents, over controlling, or enabling parents. So it's kind of like a lot of different things. Why do you suggest EMDR if it's controversial? EMDR is where you're able to open up different parts of your brain to be able to process trauma and past events, so that they're not as triggering, or they're not as harmful to you in the moment or whatever. So
I haven't heard any like controversy about it, but it personally helped me. Yeah. It may not help everybody, but it did personally help me.
Yes, there was cheating in the relationship. That was on my end. So after year 1 of marriage,
there was a pattern.
Yeah. So after the first year of marriage is when I started cheating, and around year 2 is when I confessed that one. And we went to a Christian counselor that didn't do anything. Really just kind of messed it up more. And then there's like a short period of time, and then I just dove back into it with someone else and continued the cycle another 4 times, whether it was like a 6-month, 1 week or 2-year kind of thing. No, I didn't cheat while dating. It was the cycle was more like dating cycle in one sense, and then once it went into marriage, it just continued going. And some of the cycle was the idea of, as I was getting out of relationship, or as I was seeing the relationship start to come to an end, there was already somebody like in the works. There's already like another person. So technically 5 different affairs and 8 years married.
Yeah, we've been married 8 years.
Going on 9 this coming year. Here's a good one from Instagram. Did you experience reactive abuse?
Yes, I did. In the height of 2020, probably the end of 2019, through basically almost all of 2020, probably up until like a year ago, I had really bad reactive abuse. Part of that was also I was going through postpartum depression. And then I was struggling with postpartum depression. He confessed that he had cheated with, at the time, 4 other women. And then it just started these really toxic arguments, and he would like rage and like yell and scream. And then I was like, well, I'm going to match his speed. And then I would have reactive abuse and like do the same thing. And then he would calm down instantly and like make me look like I was basically like in the wrong. And the crazy one and everything.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we talk about it in like videos, and that's why people put up like comments. And I'm like, yeah, it's very true, because like the narcissist will do that like really quickly and really instantly to try to make themselves feel like the better person.
Yeah, so it says, do you think you suffer from PTSD from your experiences? I do suffer from complex post-traumatic stress. So I've had a lot of traumas in my life. So yes, I do. No, there was never physical abuse. How
come he did not discard you? So for me, like that was kind of like the odd thing about it is there's a part of me that felt like I didn't have the right to discard her. Basically, like I'm the one that cheated on her. Like she didn't cheat on me. Like if she would have cheated on me, then I would have been like, okay, we're done, and like would have wanted to discard her right away. But there's like something inside me, and I don't know if that's part of my like upbringing that was just like ingrained in me as far as like from a spiritual side and stuff like that, of like my parents being like, you know, once you're married, always married kind of thing. But like that kind of thing, that was part of the reason why.
Somebody said, how did you hide the affairs? I mean, part of it is I would just ask him, like, I would say, hey, like, are you...
I mean, I'd like hide them through like Snapchat, through Instagram, through Google Voice. So I had a Google Voice number that I could text, and then like the notifications would come in, and they'd either go to Google Voice, so like they wouldn't pop up on my phone, and I could go check it, and you know, no one was like looking at that at a different number. And even for the people I was cheating with, like one person, I had it set up where they would get like this. I'd send like a like almost like a spam text first, and if they responded a certain way, then I knew it was them, and then I could like go ahead and start texting them and stuff like that.
Somebody asked on YouTube, it says, Kayla, do you feel anxiety every day regarding the whereabouts and phone activity, etc.? Are you on constant high alert? Not as much now. I was very, very much on constant high alert when I first found out, and I was constantly like wanting to check his phone, wanting to check his location. It would like sometimes trigger like panic attacks and things like that of like, oh no, like he's with so-and-so, or he's doing this or this or this. But now it has gotten like 1,000 times better. And if I am concerned, I'll just pull up his location, and typically the majority of the time I know exactly like where he is, of like what he's doing or whatever.
No, the cheating was physical. So it always would start out over the phone, but it was physical. Yeah, Brewski, they definitely like love to triangulate. It was actually today I got off a one-on-one where the person was talking about the narcissist, and they ended up figuring out and finding out that the particular narcissist that they had in their lives had 5 different women that they were with during the same time period. And they were like confused about that. And I was like, from a narcissist standpoint, like that's a pretty big high to be able to control and manipulate people that much. Do you think it's healthy to monitor my location?
I don't monitor. It was at an unhealthy state of me monitoring it. I go now days without checking like his location or anything like that.
It's hard too, because you gotta be careful, because that kind of question, like for me, I could turn around and be like, oh, see, it's not healthy for you to monitor my location. You know, yeah. I mean, that's really how a lot of stuff can get twisted around. And so especially like in counseling and therapy, like if people go together, like I just saw that comment and I was like, oh, that's an example.
What is that long one on?
Let me see. Can relate to reactive abuse and feel guilty in therapy now, but do you have any advice on moving past contributing to the abuse with abuse?
The biggest thing is to start, in one sense, re-finding yourself and just get into counseling or therapy or something like that, to really work through those things that could be triggering to you or whatever. My outlet is I work out every single day. I work out in the mornings. It sets up my day, and I I also like make sure that I have my quiet time with God. Those are like the two things that help me. And if I don't, then I find myself like more on edge that day or wanting to just like react to everything that he says.
I like missed like 3 questions that zipped up. I don't like dealing with shame. Like shame is one of the core drivers for narcissism, and so like shame is something that very quickly I want to be able to get away from. Want to be able to not feel any type of shame, guilt, and then typically would want to throw blame back on her. Rage, yell, anything like that. But shame a lot of times is what's driving a lot of times underneath the works of like what narcissism is and what they're actually going through.
It says something about, have you discussed something with our daughter? Our daughter's only 2.5. But yes, we will. We want to be open with her and any future kids that we have.
I'm trying to see. I'm
Sorry,
I'm missing some of the side chat that's going on. I no moderators helping. But yeah, like thank you all so much. I know we have like many moderators in the TikTok chat just to be able to help with everything. But yeah, there's a question I was going to answer, but I forgot what it was. But yeah, I did accuse her like multiple times of like cheating. Like she never has, but that was something that I did accuse her of like multiple times. Just be able to put her on the defense, then she wouldn't have as much time to like be offense. Get that one. Someone asked me how do I sleep. So my therapist would ask me that because she's used to like the people that she works with like not being able to sleep. I've always slept hard and slept like a baby.
He can knock out anywhere within like
if we were watching a movie and I like laid down, I'd be like out and she wouldn't be able to wake me up. Or if she'd wake me up, I'd like start like yelling at her in my sleep. Like it's really pretty bad. But
somebody asked a question about how do I forgive? Obviously, like I am a Christian, so I think that is part of it. But it took me a really long time to actually truly forgive Ben. I read the book Forgiving What You Can't Forget. It is Christian based, but I highly recommend it to anybody, as it goes through like the basically things that you can happen when you start resenting people and bitterness builds up and things like that. And so I kind of just had to like let that go. I had to forgive a lot of people because a lot of the relationships that he had affairs with, I knew the people, so I also had to forgive them, or else I was going to be harboring bitterness and resentment against them as well as Ben. So I highly recommend that book, Forgiving What You Cannot Forget. Forgiving What You Can't Forget.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Instagram live, it automatically shuts off after an hour for some reason, so it's going off in like a minute, but I'm just going to restart it once it does. There's not a good way to get diagnosed with NPD if he refuses to go to therapy. And this is the one thing that I get a little annoyed with some people out there where they're just like, oh, but are they diagnosed? Oh, but are they diagnosed? Like at the end of the day, like a lot of times it doesn't matter because the fact, like if they're truly a narcissist, they're probably never going to get a diagnosis. They're probably never going to get to the place where they actually get a real life diagnosis because they're never going to go to therapy. And if they do, they're never going to admit who they are. They're never going to be transparent, and they're never going to be vulnerable enough for someone to actually diagnose them. So I would be really careful with people that just stay on the train of like, oh, they have to be diagnosed to be able to, justify the abuse or whatever. Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
Okay.
There, finally got fired up a little. Does parents know he was a narcissist before he was diagnosed? No, not a clue. They didn't have a clue about any of it. I was really good at lying, and they had no clue about narcissism.
Somebody asked if I had his location whenever he was out cheating. Yes, but at the time I didn't really look at his location or.
Well, I'd also spoof it at times.
Yes,
too.
And then at times he would spoof it. So, does a narcissist always need to have a partner?
I mean, typically, like narcissism, they're looking for a supply, so they're always going to want to have something like that. Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to get this one back up.
How long did it take for you to see a change in Ben? Honestly, the true change started coming whenever we were separated. So this summer. Sorry, he's hooking back up the Instagram live. Did your therapist advise you to stay together? Neither. Well,
no, not at all.
Neither one of our therapists. Especially I don't know about his, but mine was neither pressing to leave or pressing to stay. She just kind of like talked me through like the pros and cons of like, okay, what would it look like if you did stay? What would it look like if you didn't stay? Let's go through the pros and cons and like help you figure it out.
Yeah, my therapist didn't encourage me to stay at all. She wasn't pro staying or pro leaving in one sense. So very much just trying to dive into me. But yeah. Someone said, so that you have no empathy, or is it just a lack of empathy? Is it selective? To some degree, I think narcissism has like the selective empathy, because you see either times where they fake it with other people or where they actually have some form of empathy. If you read the DSM-5, it actually doesn't say they're void of empathy. It just says they either have like hardly any empathy, or it's like the idea. I need to pull it up so I can actually read it. But it's literally like the idea of they refuse to acknowledge other people's emotions or empathy. That is way too small. I can't read that.
At first I was like, what just happened? I didn't realize you were pulling it up.
I have the DSM-5 up here. So like this is the one thing, and I haven't dived into it more, but where is it? But it was something that came up as I was like reading into it again, because I have the DSM-5 a lot of times pulled up for when I'm talking to people one-on-one, and I was reading it and I was like, oh, look at borderline. I was like, why is that not like narcissism? One second. There you go. All right. So here it is with empathy. So this is from the DSM-5 number 7 for empathy. So like normally we always hear like across the board they have no empathy. The DSM-5 says, number 7, it says lacks empathy, and then it says is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. And for me, as I've been looking into that, like to me, it also gives like the idea or the impression that they do have the capability of touching into empathy, but based on the triggering responses of past trauma, of, you know, emotional abuse, mental abuse, like early on, that is someplace that they're unwilling or they don't recognize the feelings or the needs of others at all. So if anything, it gives me like a little bit of hope to continue working on myself, continue working on trying to figure out like, how do I take the head knowledge into actually like feeling it at times?
Sorry, I just laughed because it says, do you find more empathy with, say, pets and animals more than people? No, he does not.
I don't.
He doesn't have any empathy for our dogs.
There is people out there that they have more empathy towards like pets and stuff like that, but like no. Okay, so like transparent example. So we're in South Carolina for Thanksgiving, and the dog sitter that we had got sick and didn't really do a good job dog sitting. And so Kayla's like freaking out, being like, what's going to happen to the dogs? I was like, you know, I've got a friend. I'll have him go over. We've got the neighbor. And then she's like, you know, what are we going to do? Like, what about the dog? She's like, maybe the dog's going to die. And I was like, well, at least we won't have to buy dog food. Like, and that's, yeah. Anyways.
You realize that was not the best answer.
So like I said it, and I was like, okay, that doesn't sound very good, but like, that's what I thought in the moment. So anyways. Yeah, not much empathy for animals. I don't hate animals. I don't abuse animals and like, you know, get a high off of giving them pain. That's sociopath. But like, I also don't really like care or whatever. There's the one about is Ben a dancer? Yeah, I know what page that's coming from. I can dance, but we won't go there. I'm shy.
Do I get scared of him? I do not now I was scared of him, not because he ever physically like touched me, but he has thrown stuff at the walls.
When I'd rage or get
and
like,
he would
no.
rage and get upset, and I would get scared then that it could end up possibly being like towards me or whatever. But
Yeah.
but yeah,
I mean, year one when I got like mad and I punched the detergent and that like
yeah,
blew
it
up.
exploded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel ashamed? I need to go back.
Okay. I'm gonna see what other. So I really love my partner. He called February 1st and quit. 10 months of trying, hoping we're no contact. Should I reach out December 18th to wait for him? I truly love him. People say run. If you're with a person that is a narcissist or has narcissist personality and they're not willing to change or be honest, then run. Like there isn't any help and you can't make them change. You can't make them change at all. Sorry, it's just me for a moment. She went to go to the bathroom. A lot of narcs don't really love their partner. They normally love the supply. They normally love the control that they have over another person. So the one-on-one that I had today, the guy that was the narcissist like really loved having control of other people and like manipulating the course of events, like crisscrossing people that he was with other people without them knowing it. Like he loved like that idea. Do I withhold love and affection? I did, for sure. I don't try to now at all, but like I did do that like in the past. Like that was something that was part of some of the stuff that I would do with the anger. How do I release my anger now? Some of it is writing, journaling. Some of it is stacking. So with the warrior program, like being able to actually work through those emotions, those thoughts. Yeah. What's it like to have one-on-ones with them? Most narcissists that I have one-on-ones with are coming to me because they recognize that they have narcissistic tendencies or they recognize that they are narcissists. So a lot of times it can be like eye-opening because it's me actually trying to work with them to cut their lies and tell them, I mean, just straight up tell them like, okay, if you're a narcissist and you've done this to all these people, like stop fucking lying or you're not going to get anywhere in life. Like you're not going to change. Nothing's going to matter. And so like most narcissists that I interact with on one-on-ones are coming to me or talking to me because they recognize something or they have some slight bit of awareness or someone came and told them like, hey, you're a narcissist. And so I try to work with them a little bit more. I have talked to a couple that either don't want to admit it or don't want to talk about it. I got surprised one time with a husband and wife that came on at the same time and he was a narcissist, flaming narcissist. It was pissing me off because I was like seeing something of myself in him. But yeah. A lot of narcissists do have future faking. So like people with ADHD, a lot of times they will, say, oh, I want this in the future. And then it'll never happen because some of like the attention deficit disorder, like will hinder them from getting there. With a narcissist, a lot of times it's future faking, saying like, oh, this is going to happen, but it won't happen because they're not actually looking down the road. They're just looking at the immediate. So the person, one of the people that I had a live with, the idea was he continued to future fake the person he was with, saying like, oh, I'm going to divorce my wife. Oh, I'm going to divorce my wife. I'm going to do it in 6 months. Oh, well, this came up. I'm going to do it, next month. I'm going to do it. And just kept pushing it back. And all that is just future faking to be able to keep the supply on the hook right away. YouTube's getting a lot more that I'm not keeping up with. How was my time spent with mental illness? It was a lot of fun. So like we were driving back up from Thanksgiving and got to stop in around the same area and say hi to Lee. We just got together, had fun talking about different stuff, just different stuff that we're working on. We do want to collab some. We've done like some lives together and things like that, but we have talked about some other things down the road as far as like some events or things like that. I've got one of my events coming up this coming Saturday, the 18th, a trauma bond workshop that people can sign up through on my website. But some of that's kind of like a precursor to some ideas that we've kicked around down the road. Yes, more collabs coming soon. Did you read some of those?
Oh,
I thought you were.
No, I'm sorry. You can keep
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind, they're not going to get diagnosed. Like, if they are a narcissist, they're typically never going to get any type of diagnosis because they're not going to go to therapy. They're not going to cut the lies. They're not going to try to be real or anything like that. So,
somebody said, how did you know to stay and the change was real and not? So I didn't stay. We separated for almost 4 months. And I came back because that's when I actually started noticing that he had like true changes as far as like actually wanting to continue to get help and seek counseling and therapy, and us get counseling together. And also, perfect. And he would actually want to have a conversation with me versus just like small talk or anything like that, and actually start asking about how my day was, because before it was just like, oh, let me tell you about my day. It was all about like him versus like trying to switch and have some care and some care and wanting to know about my day or something like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that therapy will continue to help. And part of me staying faithful is really just my own change, my own cutting of the lies, my own like being real about different things in my life. Narcs do get worse as they get older, but that's also because they never get honest. Like typical narcissists will never get honest, will never be real, will never be vulnerable or anything like that. And as a result, they'll never be self-aware. So they're just going to continue down that spiral constantly.
Good ways to know for sure. I'm worried that I'm a narcissist. Good ways to know for sure. Any advice?
No.
You missed the question.
Sorry, yeah. I was looking at the phone. Yeah, I said narcissists get worse as they get older. Someone said that in a different chat. A lot of times they get worse just because they get to a place where they don't care anymore. But yeah.
You can't really forget the past, but you can forgive the past. And a book that I mentioned earlier that helped me was Forgiving What You Can't Forget.
Yeah, I haven't really seen a whole lot of narcs get better and age out. If anything, I have seen either real time or from the people that I've talked to, them get worse with time. Bring up the past. I mean, they're going to want you to move past the past as quick as possible, but they're going to bring up your past as quick as possible because they want to be able to put you on the defensive and not admit anything that they've done, not have any accountability or anything like that. Yeah, I'm trying to I'm losing. Please explain not being vulnerable. I don't like being vulnerable. Like, it sucks. We had counseling together 3 weeks ago, and the counselor said like, wow, I noticed like there were some more like vulnerable moments this week, and I was like, yeah, I did too. It sucked because it's not something that's easy, and it's not something that's fun. But if I want easy and fun, then I continue the same exact cycle that's just left me in the shithole that I've been in. So the fact is, like, if I want to be different and I want to be able to change my life, then I have to be able to approach and embrace vulnerability and get to the place where I'm going to be real. I would say that narc's biggest insecurity is being alone and also shame. She mentioned narcissism, but it was also like in a conversation where there's a moment where I was saying like, my emotions aren't normal. Like, I don't connect with people the same way. Like, I don't care about people, like blah, blah, blah. I was like, maybe I'm a sociopath. And she was like, no, maybe you're a narcissist. And like kind of transpired from there, but that's how she brought it up. Yeah, children learn to have narcissistic tendencies by their parents. So there are people do say that narcissists can be, passed down generation to generation through genetics and things like that. I really think that they get passed down through a narcissist training another narcissist, whether that's actually or just like what they pick up on. I think I did a YouTube video about this, but I think narcissists are formed, not born. Like I think if you take a child out of a narcissist family and put them with an empathetic family, that they would turn out different. We're all products of our upbringing. Yeah, personal shame of like who I am, shame of what I've done. Yeah, sociopath and NPD have a lot of overlapping traits for sure. I think narcissism is really common, and I think it's getting more and more common just because of our society and because of parenting over the past like 15 years and how that's changed, how there's been a lot more parents that are either overbearing or over enabling. And as a result, that's going to take society down an awful bent with more people having more narcissistic traits.
Yeah. And also, I mean, to an extent, everybody, unless you're like super, super just an empathetic, feel all the feelings person, a lot of people to an extent have at least like narcissists. They can be full of themselves at some point or another. So it's like there's like a scale.
Mm-hmm. It hasn't necessarily affected the relationship with our child currently. She's 2.5, but there is like moments where sometimes I see, Sophia, our daughter Sophia, get upset or things like that, and I have to like mentally think like this is the right thing to do versus like what I want to do. So like the right thing to do is give her a hug versus saying like, well, I told you if you put it there it'd fall over, that kind of a thing. Like learning to try to build that even though it might not be natural. He said Brown said to release shame. Yeah, Brene Brown has a good book called Daring Greatly. That the first time I read it, it actually says stuff about narcissists in it, and then the second time I read it, after like understanding more about it, I was like, oh, there's the word narcissist in here. I never remember that. Yeah, narcissists want to look perfect. They want to keep their image. They want to be the best person in the world because that's who they think they are, or who they're lying to themselves trying to be. A narcissist won't ever stop cheating if they're not willing to be honest. If they're not willing to be honest, then they'll never stop. They'll just keep going.
How did my parents feel? My family was supportive either way. They were supportive if I stayed with Ben or if I left Ben. The two biggest things is they wanted me to be happy and they wanted me to be safe. So the one I do have, the one thing that going into any like marriage, if I would have married somebody else or obviously Ben, I would not have put up with physical abuse. I would have left immediately. So that is something that I know for myself. Like I would never put myself in a situation where harm would be brought upon me, and especially my daughter.
I'm more on the covert side than I am overt. Oh yeah, especially like in the past, like early part of the marriage, like if Caleb would have cheated, I would have been like, peace. Like there's my excuse to leave in one sense.
Yes, I did leave for almost 4 months.
So BPD and narcissism are very similar. They're both in the cluster B category. Couple tidbits off the top of my head. BPD does have the more of a capacity at times to touch into empathy and some more like feeling. BPD a lot of times will show itself with self-harm, self-depreciating, even like suicidal tendencies and things like that. A lot of BPD is women. A lot of narcissists is men. That's like really bad grammar, but the majority are one or the other. So, but yeah. The girl that I was with for a period of time, pretty convinced that she's has BPD and narcissistic tendencies. Besides myself seeing that, Kayla, her sister, and her like admitting it in one sense too. Just being able to see different things that like popped up that were like, oh, like this is how it is.
Yes, to an extent, I will always be trauma bonded to Ben. My trauma bond has 100% greatly reduced. I do not make up excuses for his actions anymore. I don't defend him. Any like things like that. Like I don't do any of that anymore. But obviously, I'm still with a narcissist, so there's still going to be some type of trauma bond.
I would say we didn't really lose a lot of friends with ups and downs. We just realized we didn't have friends. We just had a bunch of fake people in our lives. I would say like jealous a little bit, but I was never really like protective. I'd be more like jealous or like accusing her of stuff in one sense, but not necessarily like protective. I don't even remember our love languages. I know mine's changed.
My top one is quality time. My second is physical touch.
Okay. It's like going crazy.
My lowest is receiving gifts. I love to give gifts. I don't like to receive them. I mean, they're obviously welcomed and they're nice, but I would much rather spend quality time.
And take back all your Christmas presents. The name calling is not going to stop unless the narcissist actually is going to be honest. Like if they're not going to admit who they are, what they're doing. For us, the name calling has stopped, but it's also taken a long period of time for us to get to the place where we're not having these giant arguments. Maybe Kayla could have close friendships if she wasn't still trauma bonded.
I do. My friendships with people have actually increased 100%. I make sure that I do take time to build those friendships.
She has a lot more friends than I do now. I don't have near as many friends, but I mean, a lot of my friends were supplies or hypocrites or fake people. So,
we were married 7.5 years before I found out, and we're married. No, 7. Sorry, 7.
Yeah, I would. So did I ever accuse her of doing the things that I was actually doing? Like, yes, I would accuse her of cheating. I would accuse her of lying to me. I'd accuse her of, being with someone else or things like that. Like anything to kind of put her on the defensive.
Do you struggle with parenting your daughter because of narcissism?
Yeah, I struggle with being able to connect with her emotions. Like, for instance, if I'm like, hey, like, don't set that there, it'll fall over. And she sets it there and it falls over and she starts like crying. My first thought is like, well, I told you so. Like, and like having to like actually mentally think like she's crying, like she doesn't realize she's 2.5. Like I need to be able to get down on one knee and give her a hug and tell her it's okay. And then like help her pick it up or whatever. But like, that's not my immediate thought or response. And so that's one thing with Kayla and with her working with like respectful, gentle parenting and things like that, that I'm able to see that exemplified by her and be able to see how that works. But it's not natural and it's not easy a lot of times too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. They choose to cheat. Like it's an active choice. Like no one's forcing someone to cheat. And like a lot of times when I'm talking to people on one-on-ones, like they have like that guilt or that thought of like, maybe if I would have done something better, they wouldn't have cheated. Maybe if I'd done this. And like, I'm like, no, like no one was forcing your person to go out and cheat. Like they made that choice. Like regardless of what happened, they still made a choice. As far as like custody battles or like having 50-50 custody, like I think the things you need to watch out for with kids is the narcissist a lot of times will try to leverage your kids to be able to get to you, or will try to be able to talk bad about you to your kids, or try to be able to contact you through your kids or things like that. So like really keeping gray rock, like not interacting, like not engaging, not reacting to the person or like what's going on, and just really teaching your kids like love, respect, and empathy, and having them understand that you're a safe place so that whatever they're going through, they can come to you and not be turned down, not be devalued or anything like that is really crucial to the kids. I probably don't have the best example or the best advice on just managing impulsivity, but really just like working through like long term, like what are you actually trying to gain, and is this going to get you that? Like if you're trying to, save money, is this impulse going to actually get you what you want? And if it doesn't, then you have to deal with the actual facts, not the lie of like, oh, I'm going to be fulfilled if I have this in the moment. Cheating is like a drug. It's like an addiction. It's like a high. It's like a detox coming back off of it too. One of the people that I talked to, like their narcissist, like had like a high of cheating with like multiple people at once. Like that was kind of like the thing that was like the high for them. Is there hope for a child of unaware narcissists? Like yes, if the other person in the relationship is there to be able to give hope, but otherwise. Like there's not a ton of hope if all they're getting is indoctrinated just by the narcissist.
I don't know what that question is. It's
different. Does your wife ask for reassurance that you're not cheating? Do you get annoyed by it? Do you ask for reassurance?
I have in the past, and yes, I think now he doesn't get annoyed by it. I think sometimes, well, I should take that back. You do sometimes, because you're like, why are you asking? Like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I think I've gotten mainly annoyed like in the past because it was like
but mostly in the
me
past,
or like
yeah.
annoying me. Mm-hmm. How to get over shame after dating a narcissist? I think with that, like, you go into a relationship like not expecting someone to not care about you, not expecting someone to use or abuse you. So like walking into it and then walking back out of it being like, oh, I should feel this shame. I should feel bad for everything that's happened. Like realizing that stuff was done to you. And most relationships don't go that way. Most normal relationships don't go that way. So understanding like that shame and that frustration that you feel of, I should have known better. I should have seen the red flags. Like really, you can't hold yourself to that standard because you didn't know, because there was a lot of stuff going on underneath the surface that was very manipulative, lying, gaslighting that got you to the place that you're at, and being able to get to the place where you can understand the facts of like, I didn't know. And with everything going on, there is no way for me to know. I'm just grateful that I know now. Can you talk about shame and hate from a narc view? I can in like the arguments like action, as far as like if we get be like sliding off the screen.
Oh, sorry.
Like if we get into like an argument, and so like in the past, so if we get into an argument and she would start crying and emotion, all that wonderful stuff, like I would get frustrated because there'd be a part of me that would realize and know that the response that she has currently, I caused that. I caused her to cry. I caused her to get upset. I caused whatever. And that would prompt like a little bit of like shame inside of me. And then I'd also feel a little bit of guilt of like, okay, like I caused this. I'm a bad person because I caused this. But not knowing what that was and not knowing like how to be able to get out of that or even identify what it was, it would just make me frustrated. So I'd be like, okay, how do I get away from this as fast as possible? Well, the easiest way is for me not to take accountability and to blame her. So like, well, I wouldn't be yelling if you like respected me, or if you like treated me better, or if you hadn't yelled at me, or whatever it might be. And then as a result, that just makes it worse, and it just goes back through the same cycle. Then I feel more guilt, I feel more shame, and then it accelerates. Like I start to rage, I start to get like even more mad in one sense, and it really just kind of like goes in a cycle in one sense. So with that, like there was even moments that like I could see as I became more self-aware in like arguments and things like that, I could see like where the progression actually was, or where it was going at times of like, you know, I'm annoyed, I'm pissed, I'm mad, I'm raging, like I'm yelling, screaming, you know, you could see it. And I think like the scary part, like becoming more self-aware, was like seeing how all the dots connected to where people would then go to the next level of physical abuse and justify it.
He's never officially given the silent treatment. If he ever wanted to give the silent treatment, he would just leave the house and turn off his phone for like 20 minutes and then turn it back on. But that was one of the things that he doesn't do as a narcissist. He doesn't give the silent treatment.
Yeah, which isn't necessarily characteristic of just a narcissist, but yeah. Silence more or less pisses me off. I'd rather like yell and rage and like deal with the problem than I would like be the silent treatment. Up until like, I guess what, a year and a half ago, I never really cried. Like, I guess before like a year and a half, like, had you, like, how many times did you see me cry?
Like maybe 5 times max.
In what, like 10 years?
Yeah, I guess
Basically.
5 times in like, well, it would have been 5 times in 8 years of time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, we've been together 8 years married, so year and a half, 2 years before that.
Yeah.
So basically almost 10 years. You'd see me tear up or cry. I don't think you ever saw me like cry. Maybe like tear up or get emotional.
I think cry, yes, twice total. Like besides just recently, but yeah.
But yeah, over the past year and a half, I've cried more for sure.
Are there times that I regret staying? Not now, but yes, there were times, especially in the like height of the emotional abuse and everything that I was enduring. Yes, there were times that I regretted staying. I am getting to a place to where I can feel emotionally safe with him now. There are still certain topics that are triggering because when I would bring them up in the past, it would not go over very well. So we're working through that through counseling and therapy.
I do know narcissists, like some narcissists that will like be able to cry or even like cry on demand to be able to get sympathy. So like I see that kind of like in the comments there. The one girl that I was with for a period of time that had like BPD, like she could literally like turn it on and off to be able to get whatever she wanted from like her parents or me or whatever kind of thing, or just be the center of attention. So like there's also like some aspects of like BPD. Hey, Mouthful Monkey is here. So I've missed like a lot of people jumping in here.
It says you don't manipulate her anymore. I think to an extent, I don't really recall any time recently, but it's also, we've gotten to where if I feel like I'm being manipulated or gaslit or whatever, I just call him out on it. Mm-hmm. And so then he'll be like, okay, I can see that. And we kind of just like laugh it off and kind of work through that.
It's more like you'll call me out on like gaslighting or something like that, like right away.
Yeah.
Of like, you're gaslighting me right now. And like more often than not, like it's like true, or it's like an automatic thing that like a lot of times I'm like, oh yeah, you know, or we talk through it, we're able to like figure it out. Someone asked, the narc I know says he's in therapy. I don't think I believe him. What would you say? Would it be a good thing to ask to know if he is or not? I mean, if he's actually an narc and he is or not going to therapy, he's not going to tell you the truth anyway. So it'd be kind of hard to be able to know for sure. The biggest thing with therapy is you want to be able to see consistent change and openness and honesty. If you don't see that, then whether he's in therapy or not, it's not working.
My reality used to be warped. It was really hard for me to even figure out what was real and what wasn't, or if I was like making something up. Because I would say something to him and then he would be like, no, like that's not how it happened. This is how it happened. When I remember vividly it happening like a specific way, and he would recount it in a completely different way. And then it would make me feel like I was crazy and everything. Now, you know, like I said, like it's completely different now, but in the height of everything, that is for sure. It was like I was in a different reality.
Yeah, I would say I was definitely narcissistic as I was dating, in like dating relationships, high school, college. I think I was narcissistic, but I also had like some of the vulnerable, like victim side of like I was narcissistic to the place where I would push people away. Then I'd go to find a new supply, a new person kind of a thing. But then I'd always like blame it on like, oh, like they left me. I'm not the one that left. Like they're the ones that left me. Yes, Kayla struggled with PTSD, CPSD.
Yeah.
And then
So
they asked, how do you deal with it?
Yeah. So I was pulling it up because I know somebody asked earlier. So I struggle with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is very similar to PTSD, but in addition, it's difficulty controlling emotions, feeling very angry or distrustful towards the world. And basically the only thing that has really helped that has been EMDR therapy and just regular like counseling, because there would be times when I could basically essentially like start shutting off my emotions, and I would start just becoming like this like numb walking zombie of like I wasn't happy, I wasn't sad, I wasn't anything. I was just like completely numb and like basically disassociating myself. And it was starting to get to where I was having like basically I would zone out and just not want to like do anything. So honestly, it's just
like
been
depression.
Yeah. But it's just been honestly putting myself first and taking care of myself, going through therapy, and just really knowing like what triggers me to go back into those like dark moments of like just essentially disassociating.
Someone asked on here, did anyone ever warn you about me?
Yes. So his ex-girlfriend that he left for me, in one sense kind of warned me. She never said like, hey, he's a narcissist. She just said like, hey, what makes you think that he's not going to do this to you because he did it to me? And I was just like, no, like he loves me. Like he said all of these things, like, and yeah, I didn't listen. I was young and I was like, no, I love him.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, a lot of times when you try to warn like the new person, the new supply, or like the next person, one sense, like it can be futile, just because they've already concocted a story, they've already prepped the new person, like saying like, hey, like this person's gonna contact you, they're probably gonna look crazy because like this and this happened or whatever. But yeah, that's fairly typical.
I am 29. I'll be 30 in February.
Yeah. So like with like warning new supply, like so this is kind of my stance on it, and like she can talk about it a little bit as well. But like if if the person that the narcissist is going with is going to go be with, the new supply is someone that actively knew about you, like if you're already together and like cheated on you with him, all that kind of stuff. I'm not making sense. Then like don't warn them, because like they're like they knew that they were cheating to start off with in one sense. But like, let's say like, it's a narcissist and they're getting with someone else, and you don't like warn them, or like say like you have a friend of yours that's getting cheated on and you know that and you don't tell them, like that's like a big like shame on you. You can talk on that because I know you've said before you wish that the people that found out, like you're like, why didn't you tell me? Like,
yeah, like I wish that people who had knew that he was cheating had come to tell me or whatever. But yeah, I also was like, it was hard for me not to just shake the people that he had affairs with and say like, how could you do this? Because like you knew he was married. Like, do you really think that he's not going to do that with you if I end up leaving? Like all of this stuff. But in one sense, I was like, I'm just wasting my breath. Mm-hmm. I didn't leave him when he originally cheated, or even after I found out he had cheated. It was just the emotional abuse was becoming too much, and we were arguing almost 24/7, and I just couldn't take it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there are some people that contact the old supply, like not to feel crazy or to see if the stories match up in one sense.
Should I tell my boyfriend I think he's a narcissist? No. I mean, you can add to that, but I would say no.
I mean, a lot of times it's just going to come back to bite you, and it's not going to go anywhere. There's different thoughts on it, as far as like some people have shared videos, some people have talked about, narcissism. Some people brought it up with like, hey, this is something that I'm learning about. Like, do you identify with any of this or whatever? Like, there's different ways of like trying to bring it up, but there's not a easy or a surefire way to bring it up to a narcissist and not have it turn out bad in one sense. No, I don't have the urges to cheat with the old supply. Mainly like three of them are like out of my life and like not even in the same state. The other two, one of them was the one that I was with that had BPD and NPD, narcissistic tendencies, and that had a whole like trauma bond attached to it that took me 10 months to cut it off. And so like, even when we're out places, I'm like keeping my eye out for that car or whatever to hope that I like never possibly run into her ever. And the other one, it would like worked backwards from being physical to emotional to like friends to like getting to a place of like, hey, we need to cut it off.
I didn't 100% catch him cheating. I actually knew the majority of the people he cheated with. I was also friends with him, but I had suspected it, and he would just deny it and gaslight me and everything else and make me feel like I was just overreacting or being crazy. And then he finally ended up confessing.
So a lot of the trauma bonds, so someone asks, like, how did you get over your trauma bond? Like, I'll mention it, and then like Kayla can mention it. This is some of the stuff that I've been trying to work with people like on one-on-ones, like dealing with a trauma bond, and also like coming up on the 18th, we're doing a trauma bond workshop as well, trying to help some people like break out of a trauma bond. Like for me, like I developed somewhat of a trauma bond with a person who had BPD. Narcissistic traits. I don't think that narcs get a trauma bond with an empath because they don't really care. But with someone else that's like feeding them so much, like from like the BPD side, I think it's possible because they're using some of the same tactics back on the narcissist in one sense. And so for me, it was having to get to the place of like dealing with the facts of, this person doesn't love me. This person doesn't actually care about me because of the fact that they never showed it. And some of that is like a, surface level of what I try to work with people one-on-one or in the narcissistic workshop coming up. As far as like trauma bonds, like dealing with the facts is what really gets you to the place to set you free.
What do you mean by feeding?
I don't know when I said feeding.
About how the BPD was like kind of feeding your...
BPD, I'm trying to think the best way to be able to say it. BPD at times is like looking for someone to like, I can't think. Chelsea, if you're on here, you could probably answer that a lot better than I could in the moment. Like BPD at times can feed narcissism, and I'm struggling to actually put the right words together. Sorry.
It doesn't bother me now. It did bother me, but I also, it doesn't bother me now as much as what it did in the past.
What didn't?
It said, does it bother you that he has to avoid the person that you were trauma, like you have to avoid the person that you were trauma bonded with?
Why would it bother you?
I guess because like if you ran into them or something, then like you said, like you try to avoid it because.
Well, no, I was just like, why would it bother you if I was like trying to avoid them? If anything, I think you'd feel better about me trying to avoid them. I mean, I don't want to see them, so it's fine. But
that one said,
you're trying to read that one?
Yeah.
This one said, Kayla, did you share the details with anyone other than a therapist, and how do those people get past it and not take secondary offense?
It took me a really long time to. Sorry, I just got distracted reading another question. It took me a really long time to actually tell anybody. I didn't even tell my family up until Ben and I separated. I mean, they knew that we were having problems, but that was the extent of it. They didn't know anything else. I had one friend that I told that knew stuff, but other than that, nobody knew. And up until really honestly recently, and it was more so whenever we separated, because I honestly thought that we were getting a divorce, because we were definitely headed on that track. So I think that's when I for sure started opening up more to people. But yeah.
Yeah, a little nervous being on here doing this together. Like, I don't feel like in my element as far as like free reign of like talking or getting on a soapbox, but it's just also different. Like we've never been on live before. We've never vlogged before or anything like that. So yeah, a little nervous. Any suggestions on how to explain my divorce / experience with people? With the few close people I've shared my experience, it makes me feel crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when you start recalling it, you will feel crazy, but just realize that you aren't. The abuse that you have endured is very traumatic, and my biggest thing is to get yourself into counseling and therapy if you are not already, and just to kind of just explain those things of you didn't realize how bad things were, and now talking about it, like, yeah, you do feel crazy, but obviously like you need that support and you want to be open to people.
Yeah, and if you're on Instagram, there's like one of my highlight reels says something about like need to listen or something. There's one of those, it's like a video that I made for the people in your life that don't have a clue. Some people have said it's actually helped. So at least that's the goal. Do you set boundaries with me? If so, what are they?
I mean, I think the biggest boundaries that I have is more my boundaries of like, if you...
I don't think you've shared all of them with me.
No, I haven't. And
Which is, hey, that's what I tell people. I tell people one-on-ones, like, don't tell the narcissist like all your boundaries. If you have 6 boundaries, tell them 2 to 3 of them.
Yeah.
And like the rest, they have to perform, and you can see if they're actually changing or not. So
right.
I don't even know all the boundaries.
Obviously, I'm not going to share all the boundaries, but I do have some, and some that I have said is like, obviously, if he cheats again, or if I don't continue to see the progression, then I'm done. Or if he physically abuses me or my daughter.
Yeah, narcs can be very controlling over social media. like controlling or like trying to make you freak out in your mind of like what they're looking at, what they're watching, are they following, are they not following you?
Advice on helping with the trauma bond. If you are still with them, it's kind of hard, other than just trying to get to a point to where you're doing things for yourself. If you're not with them, the easiest thing is to go no contact and to really work on yourself and to be in therapy. And
Yeah, so just to clarify, because a couple people are asking about the boundary thing that you just said. So I'm not saying don't share any boundaries with your narcissist. I'm saying like you need to set boundaries. First and foremost, those boundaries are typically for you to be able to protect you and to make sure that you are safe. Second reason is you want to have boundaries so that the narcissist actually sees like, hey, there's like a line, and if I cross that line, it's not just a boundary, but there's also a consequence there. If you don't set a consequence, then the boundary doesn't mean anything, especially not to a narc. Boundaries is a challenge if there's no consequence attached to it. So when I'm saying like don't share all of your boundaries, like let's say if you have like 6 goals or 6 like boundaries of like this needs to be met or this line can't be crossed, if you share all 6 of those, they'll perform to the level that they will meet all 6 of those. They either do that or they just won't care. Either way. But like a lot of times they'll perform because they performed. Typically, the narcissist performed to be able to get you. You know, in conversations like starting off, like love bombing or like first getting to know you, they figured out how to mirror you. They figured out how to be able to identify like what you wanted or what you looked for, and then they became that person. They became that person that you wanted, that you thought was going to be the best person ever. And as a result, that's how they hooked you in one sense. So like when you're talking through like boundaries and like goals of like wanting to make sure like, you know, don't cheat, like keep changing, like, you know, you want to see a progression, but you don't want to give them a checklist. Otherwise they will go through and do the checklist. And then they think like, okay, now I can go back to abusing.
We've been married 8 years, together 10. Does your wife use a curling iron or a wand? I use a wand.
So narcissist channel. No, I'm just kidding. How was that controlling?
He wasn't controlling in the sense of like what I couldn't wear or anything like that, but I remember specifically one time he always wanted to know like where I was, not that I couldn't go to those places, but he wanted to know like where I was. And there was this one place that I went with one of my best friends for her bachelorette party.
That was a long time ago.
And this was literally we had been married a month. Because they got married a month after us. And he made sure that he dropped me off, and I thought he left. And then later, it was like years later, I found out he actually sat in the parking lot the entire time and made sure like I was fine. So like his controlling aspect didn't really start until we were married.
But I also like wanted to control some like when we were married, like knowing where you were so that I could like cheat.
Yeah.
As far as like actions, like working on rebuilding trust and like keeping trust, like a lot of that comes down with being like open and honest and like working on just like telling the truth, really. I mean, just not lying. And some of that is hard to break because some of it feels like an immediate reaction or response. And even getting to the place where I feel like vulnerable or like opening up to her, like has definitely been a challenge that we still work through. I mean, we're a lot better than what we were, but like it's still something that we still work through.
Yeah.
Did I control you because I was insecure? I don't connect with that. I don't think I ever controlled you because I was insecure. There could have been times that I was like slightly controlling because I was insecure about my image, that I didn't want to look bad for a period of time until like we were both almost on the same page of like, screw it, we don't care if we get a divorce or not. So I could see that like starting off, but a lot of times no, wasn't like insecurity because, you know, I didn't want to I didn't want to ever admit that I had insecurities. I didn't really feel insecure. It was more like shame that I would feel. Yeah. I think a lot of narcs are insecure, but I think a lot of times it goes back to shame, goes back to guilt. I can't even
There's so many comments right now. I'm sorry, guys.
Shame of who I am, shame of what I've done, shame of what I think. Like, really, it could be anything and everything. Yeah, I was always in denial about my abusive actions because, like, I thought they were justified. Like, if she'd been nicer to me, I wouldn't have yelled. If she'd listened, I would have yelled. I wouldn't have yelled. Like, things like that. I would say, yeah, I do feel bad about how I treated her.
Especially after that meeting.
Meeting
with a guy and his wife.
Oh yeah. When I did the one-on-one with the narcissist and his wife, that was annoying. Yeah. I was like lost. Sorry. I'll look on a different one.
No, I did not realize I was getting gaslit until I really started doing my research. I had no idea I just thought I was always in the wrong and I was the one that had the issues and everything else.
We separated like 7 years into marriage. And the mask kind of fell off like year 2. I mean, well, the mask started falling off like right away after marriage, but as far as like everything coming out, as far as like cheating and all that stuff.
Sometimes he does still try to gaslight, but I call him out on it.
You use the Paw Patrol example.
Paw Patrol?
I'll use the example then. So like it was, I don't know, it was probably like a month or so ago now. Like our daughter like loves Paw Patrol. She's like infatuated with him, and she like set him up on the table, and she was like going down the list, and she was like, "Oh, this one's Rocky," and I was like, "No, that one's Rubble," and like kind of went back and forth because Kayla was like, "No, like she's right, that's Rocky," and I was like, "No, it's Rubble," and then Kayla like looked it up, like turned her phone to me, and was like, "No, like she's right, it is Rocky." And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I said." Like it was just like an instant response, and she was like, "No, like you're gaslighting me." So like there is like an aspect that it's ingrained at times, but it's a little bit easier to be called out by it now, just because of the fact that I actually like know and understand some of the stuff that I'm dealing with. And there's narcissists out there that know that they're narcissists and they don't care. Like that's like their rite of passage, or like that's their entitlement kind of thing. But there's also narcissists that like don't really have a clue of like what's going on, and they're like confused about it. And I had a point to that, and I forgot what it was. But I struggle with being vulnerable now, and with like not wanting to immediately lie. So like sometimes I might say something, then have to be like catch myself. But that's literally like one of the things that I have like on my checklist every single day is like telling the truth, like being honest.
Yes, the treatment was different when we were dating versus when we got married.
And it changed like pretty much right after marriage.
Yeah, it basically pretty on our honeymoon it started changing.
How do you protect your child from inheriting the narcissism?
You can start.
By being able to like, I want to show her empathy, but that's like hard. By being able to have like a safe place for her to be able to, show her emotions, for her to be able to, like work through different things. Losing my train of thought. You talk.
I mean, really, it also goes back to you start setting boundaries with your kids, right? Like the toddler stage is kind of when they start learning those habits. So like if you're always constantly like giving in to your child's wishes. So if you set a boundary of like, okay, all right, we're going to watch one last show and then it's time to get ready for bed. And then of course you turn it off and they have this tantrum. Then you just give in, then that's already starting to set up those tendencies for them to like be able to push those boundaries and like have them be broken. So I think I just literally blanked and lost my train of thought. So I think having that aspect of just starting to set boundaries with your kids and working with them to have those boundaries be set, and also kind of showing them natural consequences of things. So like, for example, with our daughter, if she doesn't like want to clean up a toy or something like that, then I give her an option. I'm like, okay, you can help me clean up this toy, or I'm going to have to take the toy away for the rest of the day. And then obviously a lot of times it clicks like, oh, I won't be able to play with this toy for the rest of the day. And, I'm not going to be able to have it. Versus whenever she does, then I have to teach her or talk her through like, okay, well, we lost the toy today because you didn't help mommy clean it up. So it's just setting those and like having them realize like the consequences of their actions versus just like punishing them. In one sense, I don't know. It's gentle, it's respectful and gentle parenting. It's starting to be like a trend now, but that was something that I had already going into parenting wanted to do.
I think like narcissists, I mean, at the times they bore easily because they're looking for like a high and stuff like that, but they're also looking for a fulfillment of a void that like they don't know how to fill because they're looking for it in all the wrong places. Like they're looking for it of just being another high that they're going to go off of and like focusing on what they're going to get out of it. And really that's how they view love. Like most narcissists are viewing love being like, what they get out of it, what other people do for them, how much other people love them. And so working on like redefining that and changing that is like completely different. And so that means sometimes it has to be structured of like, hey, like here's time to spend with the family. Like this is when I need to be engaged in that. This is when I need to put the phone down or focus on, whatever I need to do to make sure that I'm focusing on the right things at the right times.
So I decided to stay with Ben because I started actually seeing true change in the relation, and on his part, and he was consistently going to therapy. He was actually starting to take initiative and asking me about how my day was, what was going on in my life during the period of separation, and just those small like little changes that had never been there before, because ultimately whenever we had separated, I had no intentions of coming back, and he honestly at the time didn't want me to come back. So it was when I started seeing those things, and then he actually suggested that we go to counseling and therapy together.
Yeah, when you asked your ex to get help, he told you just to forget you. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're going to do that a lot of times because they don't think they need help. Like a narcissist is above everybody else. They don't think they need help. There you go. Question for you.
I did struggle with resentment, but I read the book Forgiving What You Can't Forget. And I highly recommend that book because it talks about resentment and what happens if you harbor resentment and bitterness, and it just affects a lot of things in your life. So yeah.
We didn't talk very much during separation. We had to communicate some because there was at least like one weekend when we traded our daughter, or 2 weekends.
2 weekends that he had Sophia, so we had to talk about where to meet and things like that.
How do you forgive those female friends that Ben had?
Again, like I said, the book Forgiving What You Can't Forget, I cannot stress how great of a book that is, because it was probably super hard for me to want to forgive them as well, because obviously, one, I knew them. They were my friends. They knew that we were married. They knew our relationship. And they still chose to also partake in affair. So it was super hard, but it was very freeing to just kind of let go, because once I forgave and I realized that forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. So I chose to forgive and I chose to part ways. And to this day, I don't regret any of it.
I think that's the biggest thing that people on here need to hear, and like you probably need to do a video about that. Of like forgiveness doesn't mean you have to be reconciled. Like you can.
That was really hard for me because I had always grew up as like, oh, forgiveness, you literally forgive and you forget and you move on. But that book was seriously completely eye-opening because it like completely took the blinders off my eyes and made me realize like, oh, just because I forgive, that doesn't mean that I have to forget. That doesn't mean that he gets off the hook or they get off the hook or anything. And that doesn't mean that I have to reconcile with them. So yeah.
Yeah. Someone asked like about like, say the book again.
Forgiving What You Can't Forget.
By Lisa.
By Lisa. I always
Turkhurst.
Mispronounce her name. I think her last name, Turkhurst. I'm sure somebody, one of the moderators, if y'all could just like type it, that'd be great.
Whenever we split up, the physical supply that I had turned more emotional, and then slowly went to like friendship, and then we both agreed to cut it off, me and the other girl. But yeah, there was a form of supply during that time. I think for me, like seeing that I had a problem was like a long-term like growth and like awareness point. So like I didn't have a rock bottom. I didn't have a place that I was like, oh, like I'm a narcissist, I'm gonna automatically get there. I think it was like over a long period of time, like getting to there. And some of that was my growth and like personality stuff and looking into work environments, coaching things like that, where I started realizing like, hey, like my personality, like how I interact with people is different, how I empathize with people is different, how I feel is different than most people, and like started making me like question like what's actually like wrong with me, like what is actually going on. And it started making me think as I'm like reading like self-help books, and I'm reading like different personality tests, like DISC personality, Enneagram, 16 personalities, Myers-Briggs, like all this kind of stuff. Like really started making me think to the place of like, I got to be able to do something. And then I went through, it was a year ago, a little bit over a year ago. I went through a group called Wake Up Warrior. So I did the Wake Up Warrior challenge. It's a 30-day challenge. At that time it cost $100. It's worth like thousands of dollars because the stuff that you learn from it, the stuff you get out of it, the stuff that they put you through to get you to the place where you start realizing the lies that you have in your life, the lies that have destroyed people around you. Once I was able to see that, that was like a big eye-opening point for me as well. I think at times like it's natural for me to want to feel like the victim or feel like something's been done to me or whatever, but knowing more of what I struggle with and like what's actually going on, it's more like understanding like I'm not the victim. I've been the one to make other people the victim. Someone asked what was the biggest supply I got from the girl who had BPD. She adored me. Like she thought I was a god. So like that like helped fill my god complex. I mean, even other people said like she literally like thinks like you're the best thing ever. Like she literally thinks like you're God. So like for me, like that BPD person feeding me was like awesome in one sense for like fulfilling like my narcissistic desires. Here's a good one. How do you think your relationship compares now versus before you were self-aware? How's it different?
It's different. Yeah, it's different now, especially in arguments and just kind of everyday life. I do still at times walk on eggshells, but that's typically more around like certain topics of a conversation versus like every day. There was a period of time that I was more relieved when he was outside of the house and could care less when he would come home because I didn't have to feel on edge. I didn't have to feel anxiety or anything like that. Versus now, now it's like we're actually starting to kind of work together more like as a team, and I'm like happy like that he's coming home, because I'm like, okay, good, because you can help with Sophia, because I need to get this, and this done, and all of that stuff. And then our conversations and our conflict or anything like that, like we resolve it more quickly and it doesn't linger or it doesn't explode. And I can also, I'm able to call him out whenever I feel like he's gaslighting or something like that. So.
Yeah, I would say it is common a lot of times for narcissists to go back to the same supply and continue to cheat on them. Especially if the narcissist is married or whatever and the supply is cheating with them. Like, why wouldn't you keep going back? Because they obviously don't care. And so a lot of times narcissists will continue to go back to the same supply.
Does he care when you call him out? Not so much now. I think whenever I first started calling him out more regularly, probably at the beginning of this year when he just had started going to therapy, he definitely cared, and he was like more like, what's the word? You'd come back at me a little bit, versus now he's like, okay, yeah, I can actually see like how I did that.
Mm-hmm. There's a question I saw, but I don't know it. I think the majority of narcissists cheat in some form or another, whether it's physical, emotional, like some type of affair, whether it's putting work above you, whether it's like putting other friendships above you, like whether it's, whatever it is. I think there's a high tendency for that to happen.
Somebody asked.
What?
Somebody asked if he's coming on late, do I get anxious? Not anymore. I mean, it's also his job. He doesn't really come home late because he works slightly overnight.
They come home at 11 in the morning or 12 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, if I know that he got off at a certain time and he's lingering and doesn't communicate, like, hey, I'm stopping by Starbucks to get some stuff done or whatever, then I will, like, ask, like, where are you at? Are you okay? Whereas before I would start freaking out, like, who are you with? Like, yada, yada, yada. Now I just kind of, like, rephrase it to be more like, okay, I can't immediately jump to, like, oh, he's with somebody. I need to ask it or rephrase it differently. Like, hey, like, what happened? Like, did you get caught in traffic or did you stop somewhere or something like that?
Yeah. I think I saw a couple people say something about like road rage. I don't struggle with that as much now, but I know like early on, like you'd have a better example than I would. I don't really remember, but I know I definitely did have some road anger.
Yeah, he would like yell at people and get very frustrated.
My dad has that too.
Yeah.
Not as much rage. He just like calls people stupid. So yeah. Did you have to learn how to talk to me?
I think it's more like relearn communication altogether, not just necessarily with Ben, because just after being in a relationship, or I'm still in a relationship, but when our relationship was like the most toxic, I would automatically assume the worst and basically come at him immediately and just start firing off of like, you're doing this, this, and this. Versus now I need to take a step back and say, okay, like in my mind, I know he is like getting help and he's seeking help. So I need to come at this question from a different angle besides it already starting to attack. Because obviously that's going to be a trigger for him. And then he's just going to come right back at me. And then it's just going to have like a whole slew of different issues. So I think in one sense, like, yes, I've had to like relearn how to communicate with him, but just obviously just in general. Mm-hmm.
I didn't see.
How is therapy going for me? It's going great. I've been in therapy since February of 2020, and now I'm down to just one time a month. But it has helped immensely. I've done like a ton of different therapies. So I've done just normal and I've done EMDR, and they've all been helpful.
A couple of you have asked again, like, why did you stay?
So I stayed because I saw consistent change, and he actually started taking interest about how my day was, and kind of just, yeah, I like lost my train of thought. He was consistently going to therapy, and whenever we were separated for a time, we didn't really talk, but as time apart kept going, he started wanting to know, like, hey, how are you doing? Like, is Sophia actually okay? Like, things like that.
Real Cynthia 2 on YouTube. Yes, I've been disgusting, and yes, I've been the worst person ever to her. But if you know anything about me, which you probably don't, since you're just leaving a bunch of crap on my page and spamming me, like, start looking at my videos. I'm trying to bring awareness about narcissism and help other people change. If you don't like what you see, don't follow me. But otherwise, you're wasting space for other people who actually want to learn and grow.
What made you decide on therapy?
For me, a lot of it was just changing up like what I've been doing. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and getting the same result. And I started realizing, like, hey, my life has been shit for a good period of time, and I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not finding what I want. I'm not like being in love. I'm not like getting what I desire out of life and stuff. And I'm like, this is not working. And all I'm doing is continuing to move through the same exact cycle of, love bombing, discard, devalue, and all this kind of stuff. And it's not doing anything. So I'm like, I got to be able to change what I'm doing. I have to be able to change my perspective and figure out like what I need to do to be able to actually find like growth and healing. And for me, it took a long time to actually get to the place where I was willing to go to therapy or where I wanted to go to therapy. And even then, like, I think I went to like 3 therapists before I found the one that I was at. And I was like, this isn't going to work, because I wasn't finding anything that I liked, and I wasn't finding anything that was actually working. Like, either they were idiots or were trying to like diagnose me with like some other random stuff, or they just didn't understand anything about narcissism. And so being able to find the one that I found now, where she like cuts the chase, like shoots really straight with me, and calls me out a lot of crap, it's been very helpful.
Somebody on YouTube asked if I have my own resources, if I need to leave. Yes. The only thing, I would have a place to go. I would have a place to stay. The only thing is I just wouldn't have a job, but obviously I would stay with family, and because my job is here, obviously, but I would go and I would stay with family. I would basically move out of state.
Someone asked a question, do you take your phone everywhere with you? I definitely carry it around with me a lot now. I find myself leaving it more around than what I used to, because when I was cheating, like, I'd never want the phone to be ever out where she could access it or grab it. So like that was typically like top of mind. Like, she would never be able to have the opportunity. Like, for me now, it's like a conscious effort of like, hey, we're going to go take a walk. Let me plug it in and disengage from it.
Somebody asked, did I ever find myself sort of acting like Ben? I don't. Honestly, I would more question myself when I would have the reactive abuse.
Yeah.
I would start questioning, okay, well, maybe I am the narcissist because I just had this huge reaction, and so maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the issue. But as far as like consistently every single day, no, I didn't act like Kayla. Or act like Ben, sorry.
I kept the lock on my phone because at that time I didn't want her to be able to access it or be able to see anything. Or I might change the passcode and she'd be like, why'd you change it? I'd be like, oh, like someone found out at work or something like that, so that I could always like keep that away from her.
No, I've never cheated on him. Somebody on YouTube asked that.
I think she was telling you to cheat on me.
Oh.
YouTube's not very nice compared to TikTok. But I'm more on the covert side of, I think you meant covert or overt. I'm more of the covert side of covert narcissist.
Whenever I found out that he had cheated, I was suffering heavily from postpartum depression. And I was honestly too afraid to leave at that point, to try and start a career and a life of a single mom, essentially in the middle of postpartum depression. We've been married for 8 years.
Angela said hi on YouTube, and I was just like waving hi, and then I wasn't waving at the other comments because they haven't been very nice. I mean, it's whatever.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, she could do far better than me anyways, but she's chosen to stay because I'm working on myself, growing and healing. And if you don't like that, don't watch my channel.
Yes, we did separate for almost 4 months. This has actually been this year.
But yeah.
Yes, it is a bad habit that I'm trying to break. And we actually just had this conversation today because our daughter is picking up that bad habit, and I'm like, no, I don't want her to inherit that habit. So I'm saying sorry a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So anyways, if you guys are new on here or you're popping in, like we're starting to wrap up a little bit. You're what?
I'm gonna go to the bathroom.
Oh, we're starting to wrap up a little bit, but in case you guys haven't figured out, in case you guys haven't figured out, like I'm the narcissist in here, and really my goal is to be on this channel of, helping to bring awareness about narcissism to people out there. So it's wrecked our lives. It's hurt my wife. It's hurt all the people that have been around us involved with it, and that's been my goal, is to bring awareness. I work with people at times with coaching and with one-on-one to help them, if they're narcissists, to help them admit their lies, get into therapy, and really focus on growing and changing. Like, stop lying, is number one. And then I work with people that are in narcissistic abuse, and they're struggling to figure out how to get out. They're struggling to figure out how to break the trauma bond. They're struggling to figure out like the guilty side of like, maybe I should have done something better. Maybe I could have worked on something better to be able to keep them or do anything like that. So if anybody else on here is interested in talking more, I do offer one-on-ones and do like some coaching as well, just trying to help people any way that I can. So it's under rawmotivations.com, and you can go in there. There is an event that we have coming up next Saturday, the 18th, Trauma Bond Workshop that I'm doing part of it. Kayla's going to be, I think, joining as well. We're trying to work out the details with Christmas coming up, but she's going to be trying to join as well to be able to talk through some of the trauma bond a little bit more in depth, and also like working through a lot of different things like that. So if you're interested with any of that, check out my website, rawmotivations.com. There's a couple different things on there, some different videos and things like that. So anyways, you can see if there's any other questions you want to answer real quick.
Can I ask, are you pretty booked up?
No, with some of the holidays and stuff, that's evened out a little bit. Can you do a one-on-one with me and Kayla? Right now, we haven't opened up to doing that, just because either my schedule is a little bit different with work and with our daughter and things like that. Sometimes babysitters, things like that. But you can reach out to her over TikTok or Instagram. She's definitely like messaged and talked to people before. Lee actually did a one-on-one, or she joined his live. I think, was it Lee a couple nights ago or whatever? But she was on his live for a little bit.
If you go to my main TikTok, Kayla Taylor 28, there is a link and it will take you to my Instagram. And then my other TikTok is Hope in the Healing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she put up Hope in the Healing.
Yeah.
So
I also think that if you go to Hope in the Healing, I also have my Instagram linked there too, so you can do that.
So again, as we've been on here, we've said a couple times, but like if you're with someone who struggles with narcissism and they're not willing to change and they're not doing anything about it, like leave, like block, go no contact, move on, because like most people that struggle with narcissism aren't going to admit it, and we're not on here to give people like false hope. We're not on here to like say like, oh, your narc's going to change. Like if they're not going to be honest, if they're not going to cut the lies, if they're not going to work on being vulnerable and actually being open to change, then, leave. Don't worry about it. The TikTok is Hope in the Healing. So, no, it's not easy to talk about this, and it's taken a while. Like it took me a long time before I even wanted to start doing anything online. And then part of it was getting online and actually being honest, being like vulnerable, and vulnerability sucks half the time. Kayla didn't really discard me per se. Like we like split for a period of time, and part of that was we were debating, contemplating divorce for a good period of time. So Lisa reached out to me. I don't know if that would be a possibility. Like I said, with different schedules, it's kind of hard for us to do a dual one-on-one, but we could talk about something. I'm like missing some of the comments. I don't know.
Yeah, I am too. They're like, they all come in at once and then it just like pops up.
YouTube is tripping. Haters on YouTube, not TikTok. Thank you all for being so supportive and for helping with everything. So I really do appreciate it. We're really trying to be able to work through a lot of stuff in our own lives, be able to try to help a lot of people personally. So Kayla does talk to some people. Yeah, Lee, YouTube has all the haters. It's all good.
Yes, I am an empath. I'm not like completely like a crazy empath. But yeah, I have a lot of more empathy and I feel a lot more feels and can sympathize with people
than I do.
Yeah.
I don't really sympathize with people very
He's
well.
like, oh really, that happened to that person? Oh well. Like he just like brushes it off and I'm like, but isn't that so sad? And he's like, no, not really. Moving on.
Yeah, narcissists like move on like really quickly and they like focus on like the future versus like the past or whatever. Definitely jealous with like supplies, like jealous, overprotective, overbearing with like supplies for sure. At times like jealous with Kayla. I wouldn't necessarily say it's just a part of narcissism. I think it could be like a lot of other things, but yeah. I think my dad has some narcissistic tendencies. So my mom doesn't. She's definitely the empathy. Oh, yeah. Supplies as far as like the people that I was cheating with for a period of time. Do narcs become obsessed with their exes? Yeah, a lot of times they do. A lot of times they don't believe that the people are actually happy without them. Like a lot of times they still try to control them, etc. So yeah, absolutely. So again, if you want to reach out to us, like reach out on TikTok, on Instagram. Look me up, rawmotivations.com. So I'm working with a couple different people. We have a event coming up on the 18th, talking through like trauma bond, trying to do like a small group. So there's limited spots right now as far as like people who are interested in actually kind of having like a workshop of like working through like how to break the trauma bond, how to work through finding that growth and finding that healing. And that's what we're on here for. So if you guys haven't watched a lot of stuff, like go onto my TikTok, YouTube, or Instagram to be able to see everything that I'm trying to bring awareness to, and have people understand. So anyways, awesome. Thank you all so much. Thanks for all the moderators on TikTok, because it was popping for a good while there. Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be online. It's gonna be a Zoom. It's gonna be a Zoom workshop. Right now I got spaces for I think like 8 more people. So yeah, awesome. Well, wrapping up here. Cool. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys.
It's great to be talking to you.
I'm glad that I was able to hop on.
Yeah, you guys have asked for it, so she finally came on. But thank y'all.
I said, please don't stop doing
Yeah, well, you have to go support her page, Hope in the Healing, and try to convince her to come on more. So, someone said, got it. Coach G said, God is smiling. Hey, go check out my YouTube. I just did a new video, yesterday on Christian abuse and like how that's not really a thing. You can't abuse someone and claim to be a follower of God.
Yeah, we might plan to do another live sometime. We'll see. But
yeah,
maybe it'll be
is the link on
once
my
a
page?
quarter thing or once a month or something.
Oh yeah. On TikTok, just go to my bio, or go to rawmotivations.com. You can see it there. Oh, for the YouTube. Yeah, just go to my YouTube channel. So, Raw Motivations. Yeah, it's on there. I think I had it on my Instagram story. I don't think I have it linked in the bio. I just have my YouTube linked right now. So awesome. Sweet. Yes, you can heal from a narc. It is possible. So
it just takes a lot of work.
Takes a lot of work. Takes a lot of time. So thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate it. Kayla's link.
Probably for TikTok.
Oh yeah. So. Hope in the Healing.
Yeah. Probably just make sure that that's TikTok, and then Instagram is Kayla _. Yeah. Taylor _31.
Screenshot it. Cool.
You should probably put Instagram for that.
Oh, yeah, that.
Because people will be like looking that up.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. I know we're like wrapping down and like letting some people like put in the last comments. Yeah, we're just ending.
Yep,
sorry.
we're just ending.
So
if you guys want to rewatch the live, like if you guys are just coming in, it'll be over on his YouTube. Yeah, I'm gonna post it on YouTube. So Raw Motivations. You can see like awesome comments from all the YouTube haters that are like calling me a liar, and I'm like, being honest, that's why I'm on here. But like people don't want to. It's crazy. YouTube's lots of fun. I'm gonna post the YouTube live, which is a little bit harder because you don't see the comments. But then I'll also try to get the TikTok live up on YouTube. It's a lot easier because you can see all the comments scrolling and everything like that. So JDXR on. I didn't see what the comment was. Yeah, sorry. Maybe one of the moderators can drop, but it's Hope in the Healing on TikTok, and then that will take you. If you want to find me on Instagram, that will take you to Instagram. There's a link in there.
Yeah, I need a YouTube moderator next time. Like the person here just typed in shameful. There's been a person like keeps typing in like F me, like die, like liar, like all this kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, like you're not actually helping the problem. You're just contributing to it because you're just as bad as the abusers if you're just shaming other people instead of like helping people actually try to grow that are trying to do this. Yeah, absolutely. Sheila, you can have Adam next time. Cool. Yeah, honestly, like I don't have any. I have one mod on Facebook, on YouTube right now, and that's just someone that was in the comments that I don't think I know you. If I do, like you're great, but like there's just someone in the comments that was like saying, telling them to like be cordial and stuff like that. So I just made them a mod just to help out. But yeah, definitely have some of you guys come over next time.
It's probably like the same person that has like 20 spam accounts.
Yeah, because they keep spamming the same stuff. But anyways,
the silent treatment. That's the thing. Is Ben does not. He'll just come at people like he can't give them the silent.
I don't give the silent treatment. Like literally, okay. So I had one of my one-on-ones, and they were talking about, yes, I'm a cheater. I've admitted that. Stop like spamming me, you idiot. So like I was talking with one of my one-on-ones, and they were saying like how the narcissist in life, they connected them with like 5 people that they cheated with at the same time. And I told them, I was like, you're way nicer than me, because if it was me, I would like call those 5 people, have us like go out for coffee and be like, hey, this is what happened to y'all. But yeah, that's why y'all are blessed with more empathy than I am. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's fine. I don't really care. It's just haters gonna hate, but it's gonna, yeah. Cool. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Y'all have been great.
Thank you guys.
Cool. Yep. So we're wrapping it up. A lot of times I'm going back on. Oh, sorry. YouTube's cracking me up. A lot of times I try to go live on. Well, I'm trying to go live on multiple platforms now, but a lot of times I try to go live on Thursdays, so 8:30. So we should be back next. I should be back next week, and we'll see if she joins us in the future.
Raw motivations.
Yeah. So if you look at the top, like it says, like well, mine says Ben Taylor 300, but if you click on my profile, it says Raw Motivations. So Raw Motivations is on Instagram and also on YouTube as well, and then rawmotivations.com. I've got the links in my bios as well.
Yeah, just check out the links in his bio.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm glad that I was able to answer some of y'all's questions. I know obviously I wasn't able to get to all of them because they just kept coming in so fast, but thank you guys.
Hey, Naomi, message me sometime on like Instagram or TikTok or whatever. I really appreciate you helping out, jumping on here. I know I didn't even ask. I just threw that at you, and you definitely helped. So, because these people are great on YouTube. So thanks so much. Thank you so much, everybody on TikTok. Y'all have been fantastic as normal. Moderators, I know there's still a bunch of you on here, but like moderators, y'all were phenomenal. Thank you guys so much. So, but yeah, Naomi, message me sometime. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks,
y'all
guys.
Take care.
Have a good night.